Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Neshaminy School Board Public Works Section, Tuesday, October 12th. Mrs. Burns, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Parentano.
Present.
Mr. Allen.
Present.
Mrs. Bowman is absent with prior notice. Ms. Boyle.
Here.
Ms. Hallenbeck.
Present.
Mr. Kowitz is also absent with prior notice. Mr. Marrington.
Here.
Mr. Cirillo.
Here.
And Mr. Sullivan is absent with prior notice. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board met in executive session this evening prior to the meeting to discuss matters of employment, issues related to labor relations, the purchase or lease of real property, matters related to litigation, and matters related to school safety and security. Any announcements this evening?
Yes. Do you want to do this now?
We're going to have a, doing this now, or are we going to do it during public comment?
What's that?
Do it now, right?
It was part of the Superintendents Report.
I'm sorry.
Part of the
All right, well, let's just move Dr. McGee, and he'll present our Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Parentano. In the Superintendent's Report, you'll find the enrollment report for this month. Enrollment is stable. It's actually up a bit. I think we found some of those missing kindergartners. As everyone knows from the email on Friday, our weekly snapshot of COVID. I'll save the review. It's easily read. COVID's up a bit in the county, up a bit in the Neshaminy municipalities, and up a bit in the district. That being said, we're able to continue to run schools safely and effectively given that increase. And I'm going to pause right now to have a special announcement from Maple Point about their Veterans Day celebration, the annual Veterans Day celebration. I probably should know how many this is, but I'd like to introduce to you the Wirt twins.
Good evening. My name is Dalton.
And I'm Haley.
Maple Point Middle School will be holding its annual Veterans Day ceremony on Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. This is a wonderful way for our students and community to show appreciation for the sacrifices that our local veterans have made and to celebrate the courage that they have shown in serving our country. This year, the recognition of our veterans will look different, but the sentiment is stronger than ever.
The Maple Point students and staff would like to invite veterans and their drivers to participate in a Parade of Heroes drive-thru on the Maple Point campus. Using a one-way traffic flow, vehicles will enter the driveway on the Woodburn Avenue entrance, be greeted by staff, students, and distinguished guests, and depart at the Langhorne Yardley Road exit. In recognition of safety, participants will remain in their vehicles. The parade begins at 11 a.m. and should conclude by 11:30 a.m. In the event of inclement weather, our parade will take place on Friday, November 12th, 2021.
In addition to the Parade of Heroes, we will be creating a video to be distributed to the community through Neshaminy School District social media sites. Remember, no registration is necessary to participate in the parade. We will see you on November 10th, 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you, Dalton and Haley, and thank you, Mrs. Foley, for are you coordinating this? Are you the official coordinator now? That and your team.
I'm one of the
You're one, right? So it's a wonderful community Maple Point event for Veterans Day. So we look forward to having it this year. As to continue the tradition, this meeting will go on for a while yet. If you'd like to leave and go home and do your homework and enjoy other things, it's a great time to quietly sneak out. All right. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next part of the superintendent's report is an overview of the comprehensive plan for the Neshaminy School District. Big picture, school districts throughout the Commonwealth have multi-year improvement plans, which are a good thing to have and also required by the Commonwealth. Neshaminy's plan was due last year at this time, and because of the pandemic and the transition between superintendents, we were granted a one-year exemption. So fortunately, we've been able to work on it since then, and a good part of the plan is stabilized and ready to go. This is the part where we then get things prioritized by our community and our parents. So I want to review that with you briefly. It's been presented to Ed Development a number of times. I want to say 3, but it might only be 2. Our staff is aware of it. It has been created by the administrative team initially, then vetted by principals, then vetted by members of the support and certified staff. And after this presentation, we will send it out to the community so they can have their input on it as well. So all planning begins with the district's mission statement. Neshaminy's present mission statement says, the Neshaminy community builds futures by empowering each child to become a productive citizen and lifelong learner. Our group decided that mission statement is outstanding and we'd rather not change it. It's actually been around for a long period of time, and under Mr. Jones in the previous strategic plan, it was adjusted minorly in small areas. So empowering each student to become productive citizens and lifelong learners. So if you look at productive citizen and lifelong learner, imagine all the wonderful things that are encompassed under that. So we like that, and we're proposing that we keep it. So the plan itself is rather broad, flexible, and agile in the event the world changes and the district's need change over the next couple years. So we are centered on student-centered, parent-focused, and community-informed. Outside of that are curriculum, which is what we want students to learn, instruction, how we get them to learn it, and then assessment, how we measure whether they have learned it. Outside of that is the idea that we're going to use innovative technology, civics-minded themes, and equity-driven. That sits on the cornerstones of college and career readiness. Had we done this a decade ago, maybe 5 years ago, that would just said college readiness. So you can see how we're adapting to changing circumstances. Student supports, which are a big factor, and then the other cornerstone of leadership. All that, the idea of a culture of continuous professional learning from our staff as we improve and make things better in our own craft. The foundation of that is our schools and campuses, our community, and the concept of Neshaminy pride. We've been here for 120 plus years for a reason. So that's kind of the big picture. We have 4 target areas, 4 big goals. One being modern, safe schools and campus environments, and I'm going to go into each of these a little bit more. The other, guaranteed, viable curriculum and instruction. Guaranteed meaning it's accessible to all, viable meaning it's meaningful and can actually be delivered. As I talked about before, student-centered, parent-focused, and community-informed. Every lens that we look at should be through how it affects the students, how it affects our parents, and whether the community will support it. And the final piece, sustainable culture of professional learning, how we improve our craft as professionals, and then leadership to make sure that the district continues in a sustained leadership fashion. So each of these have action elements ideas. Let me back up for a second. Modern safe schools, campus environment, deals with schools and campuses, community, technology, and the idea of Neshaminy pride. And this is something the board has been involved in a long time. So long-term facilities and grounds planning, it's been around for at least a decade as far as how we've gone through our buildings and improved them. Bullets of that would be a 360 campus focus. As an educator for the past 33 years, I've been at the secondary level and know what goes on in those classrooms. For the past year or so, I've been able to visit the elementary level. Those schools, what goes on in the classrooms and how those rooms look are just amazing. Unfortunately, if you look at some of the schools from the outside, they don't look so amazing, and neither do their campuses. So when we drive around the community, we want to see if we can address that a bit. The idea of building a Langhorne Elementary School, I think we're well on the way to do that. And then the next step, as soon as we're able to get the Langhorne Elementary School moving, we need to take the look at Levittown and look at those schools, see what needs to be adjusted, and see if they, in fact, need something new or some type of changes. The board has moved from the lower south Feasterville area with the building of Tawanka and closing some schools. Now we're in the center of the district at the Langhorne area, and the next stop is in Levittown. Continuing on that, the idea of seamless technology integration. And then safe and secure campuses with safety teams, putting some of our experts in place of things, the idea of renewing and expanding our SERO initiative with Lower South Township and Middletown Township, and really putting some of our experts in places in the idea of emotional safety and health and wellness. So if you notice, one of these is bold. That's building the Langhorne Elementary School, because it's already been prioritized by the board itself or our staff or the administrative team. As we move on to the second one, the guaranteed viable curriculum. We're focusing obviously on our core of curriculum, instruction, and assessment with technology, equity-driven, and civics-minded as a theme. So we have curriculum renewal, develop a curriculum renewal cycle. It is bolded because our staff has already identified that, and specifically they've said reading in elementary and middle school level. We need to look at our what we teach so we can do better at that. Expanding integration of STEM and the engineering design model, and the idea of embedding a civics-minded theme K through 12. Research-based core instruction on what is the best way to present things in class, and then social emotional learning and cultural responsiveness. They are bolded because it came out clear in our staff survey that this is what they believe will make us a better school, educational, or organization, and what our students need. And then the final piece of this is meaningful assessment, how we measure what we learned, a map of why we assess. The idea of qualitative data works almost as well as quantitative data in the social sciences, and investing in our data infrastructure. So that's the idea of guaranteed viable curriculum. Moving on to student-centered, parent-focused, and community-informed. Obviously, we're dealing with community, college and career readiness, and student supports. Academic interventions and supports. Believe it or not, students fall behind even when there's not a pandemic. So how do we make sure that they're made whole throughout? So trauma-informed practices, multi-tiered system of support, which the board has already supported and is already out the door in a 3-year plan. And then the idea of 12-month learning opportunities. You want to talk about learning loss. You know what it happens? June, July, and August. So I'm not talking about going to school for that time, but actually have ways for students not to lose ground along the way. College and career pathways, continuing our AVID mentorship elective started under Mr. Jones in grades 8 through 12. Common language, career themes, clusters, and pathways. Believe it or not, all the careers in the world fall into 5 categories. And then those 5 categories are divided into 16 clusters. And those clusters into 72 pathways that lead to the immense number of careers and professions. So articulating that better and making sure students articulate their post-graduation plans, whatever they may be. The idea of system responsiveness. We owe our community information and to respond to their questions, concerns, and a whole bunch of community partnerships that exist. What makes us great, and we need to articulate them better. So the idea of student-centered, parent-focused, and community-informed. And the final piece is creating sustainable professional culture. That's sustainable leadership, a distributive leadership model, which you saw some of the examples of putting people who are passionate about certain things to lead certain areas, even though they may not have an official title. And the idea of growing our bench. There's a school district not that far from us, matter of fact, it touches us, that replaced half of their administrators this year simply through attrition. We, at some point, will face that, and we need to make sure that we are growing our folks, or at least growing the bench, or making sure that we can find people. The idea of staff recruitment and retention came out from our staff very, very specifically. Active recruitment of all staff classifications. Again, believe it or not, prior to our present employment situation, post-COVID or during COVID, however you look at it, we were having trouble finding certain certifications of teachers and certain classifications of support staff. Neshaminy's done very well, but within the next 3 to 8 years, we're going to have a significant retirement based on a hiring bubble back in 1993, where we're going to be challenged. We need to make sure that we're ready for that. And the final piece is a culture of professional learning, where we learn during our day, not in spray and pray type workshops every few months, and the board has supported that already as far as our instructional learning coaches. So that kind of gives you the idea of the broad, flexible plan with some of the present priorities. The next step is to put this plan on public display. We're going to email it out to parents and put it on the website. We're going to survey the parents and ask them what they would like to prioritize within the plan and anything else that they'd like to prioritize, and we'll see if everything that comes out as a thing that needs to be prioritized fits somewhere in the plan. If it doesn't fit, then we have to augment the plan if it's a significant need within the community. And it's a hope that by this time, in about 6 weeks, we'll have completed that process, and we'll put it on the board's agenda for potential approval at the end of November. So that's a big, quick overview of our comprehensive plan, proposal, and draft put together by the cabinet, myself, administrators, and a steering committee made up of certified staff and support staff. So I'll pause on this. Questions from the board specifically about this particular document, the process, or the components of it.
I'd just like to state that I know the district has been working on this for a long time, and I appreciate all the hard work by those on our education committee, as well as the administrators. I think we've really found a plan, and it's grounded in a lot of core values here at Neshaminy, and I think our community can support, and I very much look forward to some of the feedback we get from the community once it reaches there. So I just want to thank everybody who worked so hard in getting this together.
Thank you, Mr. Parentano. And again, that includes myself, the cabinet, administrators, teachers, and support staff as well. All right, and then our next step is to talk to our community, our parents about it, so they can give us input and participate as well.
Dr. McGee, I just wanted to comment on the modern safe school campus environments and point out that I'm glad to see it that it's in this long-term planning. Now we've made it a priority during our facility and operations for the idea that we invested in all of our regions, and our long-term goal was either to finally come back around to Levittown in Region 2, and to either invest in a renovation or hopefully a modern facility in that Region 2. I just want to thank you for making sure that it got into your long-term comprehensive planning, and the fact that we our additional security in all our buildings we invested in. I mean, that wasn't a simple thing, and it didn't come out of nowhere. We had to really work our budget and to make it a point to do that. We had other priorities. I shouldn't say other priorities. There were just other distractions coming up during the budget process, and we had to make sure that we addressed outstanding issues with our facilities. That's Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, that has been the commitment of not only this board, but previous boards about taking care of our facilities, whether it be going through each of the, at the time, 15 buildings with the Giza renovations, or taking them offline, building the new Tawanka Elementary School, building the renovated new Neshaminy High School, and sitting in superintendents' meetings where they're struggling about face masks and the temperature outside compared to the temperature inside. I was one of the few that could say every one of my facilities was air conditioned, and that's because of the commitment to the board, this board and past boards, to make sure that that's gone. And you've done a nice job, and we're going to continue it into the next several years.
All right, thank you, Dr. McGee. It's going to move us on to our first period of public comment. Does anybody wish to approach the podium, or do we have any signups for public comment? No signups. Does anyone want to approach the podium? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. There are no board action items this evening. We have a number of items that are going to be on the agenda on August 26th at our public meeting for approval. They are 3.01 routine business matters, 3.02 student settlement agreements, 3.03 Omni investment, 3.04 Langhorne Mayor's Playground Agreement, 3.05 Act 34 hearing schedule, new elementary school in Langhorne, 306 assessment appeal settlement, 3.07 overnight trips, 3.08 Lower Southampton Middletown Police Department MOUs for 2021-22 and 22-23, and 309 American Education Week. It will be on the agenda for the 26th.
Mr.
Mayor?
Parentano?
Yes.
For 3.07 overnight trips, can we just make sure that we fix item number 4 and 5? There's some typos.
4 and 5. Okay.
It should be 2022, not 2021.
Oh, I'm looking for the typo. Okay, there it is. All right, we'll make the administration aware of that, and they'll make sure that will be corrected on the agenda and the public
I was
notice.
trying to figure out how to spell adjudication. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's what I
Is
was
that
looking
what
at.
messed you up?
Thank you.
Can I ask one thing, follow up on
Sure.
that, the 3.07 overnight trips? Something that occurred to me the last time we talked about trips. We had a discussion about chaperones, and for a while there, the board was getting a printout of who requested it and the chaperones, the numbers. I believe Mr. Harms was making a point of making sure we saw that. That wasn't my request when I first joined the board. I'm just wondering, they stopped showing up. I'm just asking what happened there.
Probably because I wasn't aware of it. I apologize. So, Mr. Allen, I'll get you whatever. So basically, at the time of approval, you would like to see those who are chaperoning the trip at the time. Got it.
Honestly, it was my very first night on the board, and we were approving trips and my background coming from Boy Scouts was, well, how many kids are going and who's in charge of them and how many? So that was the agreement that made me happy that we were seeing paperwork on that.
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Marrington, you had something you wanted to add on 304?
Yeah, I would like to announce that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors has reached an agreement in principle with Langhorne Borough on the transfer of the 3 land parcels that make up what is known as the Mayor's Playground, located at the corner of Maple Avenue and Route 413. The Langhorne Borough Council has a meeting. This item is on their agenda for tomorrow evening. And if they're in agreement and ratify the proposal, the Neshaminy School Board will have an action item on our agenda for the October 26th meeting that will, upon an affirmative vote, complete the transfer agreement. Details will be furnished to the public prior to October 26th. Meeting of the Neshaminy School Board in accordance with the applicable Pennsylvania Sunshine Rules and regulations and Pennsylvania school code requirements. And I'd just like to thank everybody who's been involved with this. This has been an ongoing
project. I've lived in Langhorne Borough for 40 years, and my kids kind of grew up on that playground, so there's some personal satisfaction here for me, and I'd just like to thank everybody who was involved, and I'm sure the Borough Council will ratify this tomorrow. So,
Thank you, Mr. Marrington. That'll move us on to committee reports. Business operations, Mrs. Hollenbeck?
We actually have a joint business operations and facilities planning meeting tomorrow, the 13th of October, here in this conference room, or boardroom, I should say, at 6:30. We will be discussing the financial and the facilities aspect of the new proposed Maple Point Elementary School. Thank you.
Mrs. Bowman's absent this evening. Is someone prepared for educational development?
The last educational development meeting that we had actually just went over the strategic plan that Dr. McGee just reviewed in his superintendent's report.
Do we have a date for our next educational meeting?
November 30th,
November 30th. Thank you.
6:30.
6:30 in this room.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Sullivan is absent this evening. Facilities and planning, as Ms. Hollenbeck previously mentioned, we're going to have a combined meeting tomorrow where we're going to discuss in detail some of the design features and aspect and costing of the proposed Maple Point Elementary School. And if we have time, we may also have some discussion on the Fields project at the Neshaminy High School as well. Mrs. Boyle, policy, please.
The next policy committee meeting, it will be held on October the 19th, in which we will discuss, we will review Series 200 of the policy.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyle. It brings us to our representative reports. The IU Board, Mr. Cirillo.
Thank you. Just wanted to remind everybody that the Bucks County IU is still facilitating free COVID-19 testing. People who are eligible for it are all Bucks County school employees and contractors, and it is for Bucks County children who have exhibited symptoms of COVID-19. You need to make an appointment. They are required. You can go to the website go.bucksiu.org/COVID testing, and it should take about 15 minutes to get the result. So it's a nice rapid testing for anybody who may feel ill.
Thank you, Mr. Cirillo. Mrs. Boyle, Neshaminy Education Foundation.
Yes, the Neshaminy Education Foundation Board met at the high school on Monday, October the 11th. They discussed current and upcoming fundraisers and plans to announce the first annual Neshaminy Alumni Achievement Award winners in November, and plans for the purchase and donation of a video recording and live streaming system for the Neshaminy High School auditorium in the amount of $20,000. And applications for the annual classroom grant program are now available and are due back December 1st. Winning proposals will be announced before the winter break. And our next meeting will be held on Monday, November the 8th, 4 p.m. at Maple Point.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyle. PSBA liaison is myself. Currently, there's nothing to report. That brings us to the technical school. Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Furtado. It was a relatively quiet meeting that it was held. The Joint Board Committee met September 27th this year at 7:30. We discussed basic housekeeping of staff appointments, resignations, etc. Of note, at that meeting, the Tech Board accepted grants, one from the Pennsylvania Department of Education in Century Community Learning Center grant in the amount of $399,900. That was a one-time grant we accepted for this year. A grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Education 21st Century Community Learning Center grant of $30,830 per year for the next 3 years, and a $8,809 grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Education under the American Rescue Plan. And of note to our district, we accepted the Teen Parenting Grant funded by the Maternity Care Coalition. It is managed by our school district, and it is to be used for homebound tutoring services for the 2021-2022 school year. Beyond that, all I would like to report that all 6 districts have voted and approved the bond parameters resolution that we took action on at our last board meeting. That bond is for renovations at the tech school, which will include new roofing, upgrades to the HVAC systems, the fire suppression and security upgrades at that facility. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Bring us to our second period of public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to approach the podium for public comment? Seeing none, does anyone have any future topics? Hearing none from the board, that'll bring us to board comments. Dr. McGee, is there any commentary you need to add this evening?
I have nothing, Mr. Parentine.
Thank you. To bring us to our board members. Does any board members have any commentary for this evening?
Actually, I do. I just want to point the public out to our Neshaminy Facebook page, and on there's 2 really great videos that Mr. Stanley put together. One was for the brand-new Library and Media Center that was on display at the back-to-school night at the high school. They did a really nice job there. The students should really benefit from it. And also, over this past weekend, the NHS Environmental Science Club and the students and volunteers, we were planting trees in the Idlewood Forest Preserve. They removed all of the damaged trees. I know we got a grant for that, and they're doing amazing work. Please check out the video. It was great to see the community coming together to preserve such a fantastic piece of land. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would just like to remind all of the students and residents, our last football home game is October 22nd, and it's the Pink Out game for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Thank you.
Very good. I'd just like to say thank you to Dalton and Haley Wirt from our our Maple Point Elementary School. That was good. Our Maple Point Middle School. You know what I have on my mind. About their Veteran Day parade. I think that was great. They presented themselves well at the podium, and I want to thank the teachers that are involved in helping proctor this event. And it's just another bit of Neshaminy pride that continues here, and it's just great to see. Other than that, I just want to remind the public, as we spoke, tomorrow evening, 6:30, a joint facilities and business operations meeting here at Maple Point, policy on the 19th at 6:30 in this room, and then our next public meeting will be an action meeting on the 26th, 7 o'clock in this board meeting room. At this time, seeing no other business, I'd like to call for adjournment. I have a second by Mrs. Hollenbach. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all.